time to get out of the snow. Well, I moved to Dublin. Let's go inside. I'll tell you all about it. How can we keep this short and sweet and not get into too much history? You might be wondering why Ireland. Well, there's a bit of a story about that. When I was in university, going way far back, well over a decade ago, I did my last semester studying abroad in Australia. I loved Australia. I really wanted to stay, but staying in Australia was really complicated. I don't know if it's still as complicated now as it used to be, but it used to be super complicated. While I was there, I had actually arranged for a work sponsorship, but unfortunately that all fell through very last minute. Got booted out of the country, went back to Canada. While I was in Canada, I was hoping to only be there for 3 months because I was applying for a new visa with a new sponsor. 3 months turned into 8 months until I found out one day that my application, due to a glitch, wasn't even being processed. And by that point, I was ready to move on. I was also ready to move abroad because I'd been saving my money and I was just like ready to go. That day, I went to work. I was working at a restaurant in small town Vernon, was serving a couple that was from Dublin, and they were asking me about my story. I told them about it, that my visa had fallen through that day, and they were like, oh, well, you should move to Dublin. We'd give you a job. And I was like, oh, Dublin, that sounds interesting. Turns out that they were restaurateurs, had like a very well-known restaurant in Dublin. They gave me their business card, said to look them up if I was ever there. And it just sort of planted the seed. The place that I'm house sitting right now is just so beautiful. So that's why I keep changing up the camera angles because I'm spoiled for choice. Okay, so getting back to the story. Right, where were we? So the next day was Sunday, and I did a little bit of research and discovered that it was actually very easy and straightforward for Canadians to get working holiday visas for Ireland as long as you were under 30. And at that time I was at the young age of 22, 23, I think. I think I was 23. Anyways, so I did some research on visas, and I also did research on jobs because obviously I wasn't just banking on this one job opportunity. And Dublin being Dublin, there was lots of jobs available in restaurants and bars, cafes. I had lots of experience serving in Canada and Australia, so I was confident that I would be able to get work there. It was literally 3 weeks from meeting that couple from Dublin that I ended up moving to Ireland. It may sound crazy, but I was ready for an adventure. I was ready to move on. I was sick of waiting for my visa to come through from Australia, and I wanted to move abroad. I had always thought about moving to Europe before, and I was interested in England and Ireland because they were English-speaking countries. Canadians also typically have a lot of like heritage or roots from Ireland and England, so there was that as well. It was, of course, a little bit scary. I had moved abroad before, so it's not like it was the first time I had ever done it, but when I was moving to Australia, there was a few people that I knew I was going to see from home at some point, whereas when I moved to Dublin, I knew nobody, like not a soul. So I really had to put myself out there. I did a lot of research before coming, and then once I was here, just even in social situations, I had to put myself out there and meet people, and I'm really glad I did. When I moved to Dublin, the situation was so different than Australia in the sense that they just kept giving me visas to be here. When I got here, I was on a 1-year working holiday visa. Shortly after I got here, they extended the Canadian working holiday visa to 2 years, but the catch was if you were already on a 1-year visa, you got an extra 2 years on top of that. So suddenly my 1-year visa turned into a 3-year visa, no problem. Once my 3 years was coming up, I was actually in a situation where I had someone who was willing to sponsor me for work. I ended up getting a 5-year work permit out of that. And then once you have been in Ireland for 5 years, like working, you're able to apply for citizenship through naturalization. So I did that, I think after I'd been here for 7 years, because by then I had all the proof of like my lease, and you need lots of proof of address and all sorts of things. I can go through that in another video if anyone's interested in learning about that process. And I ended up getting my citizenship right before the COVID-19 pandemic hit. It was literally like 2 weeks, I think, before lockdown happened, which was super lucky because you actually need to have your citizenship ceremony in order for you to get your citizenship. I had made up my mind that I didn't want to move away from Ireland until I got my citizenship. And this is because visas are so tricky. I'd always known that with my previous experience with Australia and them like not letting me in, I really wanted to be in a situation where I was able to move countries freely. Getting the Irish citizenship was great because that's an EU passport. So now I'm able to live and work anywhere in the EU, which is just like amazing. So got my Irish citizenship, lockdown happened. We were here for about a year of lockdown. And of course, at that time I was working for restaurants as well. So those all got shut down. Again, there's more stories about what happened during lockdown and what we did for work. But at the end of the day, I was feeling really far away from my family because traveling was so difficult at that time. And my parents are getting older. There's like this younger generation of nieces and nephews that are growing up. And so I was kind of at this stage where it's like, I feel like I should be in Canada. I got offered a job to be a videographer for my brother-in-law's real estate company. Myself and my partner, Steve, decided that like this was a great chance to go and be with family. So after a year of the pandemic here, we ended up moving to Canada. And that was all like crazy times, you know, like moving abroad during the pandemic. But then we were there, we ended up being there for 3 years in total. We knew pretty quickly after being there, I think it was after the first summer, we especially knew that it wasn't the place that we wanted to be permanently, but we decided that we wanted to stay and spend that time with family for, you know, at least a couple of years. So after 3 years, we decided it was time to move back to Ireland. Now that I'm back in Dublin, it's interesting because it really just feels normal. People are like, oh, what does it feel like to be back here? And it's like, humans are so adaptable. It's bizarre because it feels almost like we weren't even gone. What felt really normal, you know, a year ago suddenly feels so far away and like it didn't even happen. But yeah, it feels really good to be back in Ireland. It feels like we're just back home. I love Dublin. I think that it's a great city. It's really friendly. There's lots of things happening. It's a very creative city, which is really nice. I love the food. One of the things that I love most about Ireland is like the quality of the food here. The grocery store is not expensive. You can eat amazing local produce. The dairy is really good because the cows here can be grazing like year round. Same with the quality of meat. So that's really exciting. By the way, I'm house sitting right now, so don't get too used to this beautiful setting. I'm just taking advantage of the opportunity to film in this glorious setup. But my apartment itself is very much smaller. I'm gonna tell you what's up with the channel, but I fancy some brownies. So let's move to the kitchen. I'm gonna do a little baking and carry on with the story. Okay, so I'm gonna cheat and use a little brownie mix. Medium eggs, 60 grams of dairy-free spread or butter. Because we are in Ireland, we are definitely using butter. I would probably always use butter as well, to be honest, but in Ireland, it's all grass-fed butter, even better. What does this mean for the channel? So, I mean, this channel started out as like video tips, social media strategy, video editing, that kind of thing, because I actually am a social media manager. I've been a videographer in the past as well. That's good. I mean, I enjoyed making those videos, but now I'm looking for a shift. Like I want to get back into the lifestyle content. Another random story is I actually did a little Cooking with Grace show back when YouTube was like just starting out. I was working at the local daily student newspaper at university. We started this lifestyle content. It was super fun. And now I'm kind of like coming back to my roots, I suppose, in that sense. I'm a social media manager and I've got, you know, a level of expertise, if you will, in that industry. The other area that I know a lot about is food and drink, because I worked in hospitality for like 15 years. I've got a major interest in that. This is fun. I like making videos about food, cocktails, wine. Maybe some content about Dublin, like good areas to live in, different suburbs within Dublin, just the general vibe. I can also do some travel stuff, like the amount of times that I've flown with budget airlines like Ryanair. I know all the tricks for flying with Ryanair, and also how to plan like good, cheap trips within Europe, like weekend getaways, midweek getaways, that kind of thing. I like making videos, and I've been trying to figure out for a long time what I should do on YouTube. And what all the YouTube people say is you should focus on stuff that you already know how to do. Like you're the expert in something. So that's why originally I thought like, oh, that's why I'm going to do this content that's focused on social media tips and tricks, video editing, that kind of thing. But then I realized, oh, I actually do know a lot of other things as well. And that is the kind of stuff that I feel more inspired creatively to share. Like I said, travel content, food content, drinks content. So I would love to know what you want to learn about. I feel like that's been more than enough information for one video. If you've stuck around to the end, thank you so much for watching. And if you have any ideas on what you want me to share on this channel, leave a comment down below. I'm always looking for some fresh inspiration. Hopefully see you soon.